If you were just served foreclosure papers in New York, the part that matters most isn't the auction, it's the 20 days. Because if you don't respond during the 20 days, you're giving up your say in what happens next. That doesn't mean that your house is sold tomorrow, but it does mean that the case can start moving without you in court. And that shift happens right at the beginning. Most homeowners focus on the wrong part of the foreclosure. Most homeowners think about the end. They think about the eviction, the auction sale. They think about those things. But foreclosure in New York doesn't fall off a cliff. It actually moves in steps. And the first real step, the one that determines how the rest of this feels, is whether you're going to respond or not. Once you're personally served, the foreclosure clock starts. You have only 20 days to respond to the court, not to the bank, not to the customer service or servicer, not by telling them that you'll try to catch up. You have to respond to the court. And I understand that that word alone makes people uncomfortable. Court feels very serious. It kind of feels final. But the truth is, the bank is trying to collect money, but the court's role is to make sure the legal process is handled properly. Those are not the same things. And just so you know, the court prefers to be on your side, not the bank side. So when you file what's called an answer, you're not attacking anyone. You're not escalating the situation. You're simply saying that you received this and you're participating in it. And that keeps you in the case. Because if you don't respond, the lender can request what's called a default judgment. Let me explain what that really changes. Default doesn't mean that the sheriff shows up next week. This is still New York. It takes time. The process still takes time. But default means the lender can move the case forward without any input from you, without you raising any defense, without you challenging any errors that might have happened, without you slowing the early pace. And that's what matters the most, because the early stage is where leverage exists. Once that early stage passes, your options, they don't really disappear, but they narrow down. And I've seen this happen more times than I can count. Someone gets served, they're so overwhelmed, and they feel embarrassed. They feel stuck, and they end up telling themselves that they'll need a minute. They put the paperwork aside. Then a few weeks pass, and they say, I don't think anything was happening at this point. Something has been happening. The lender's attorney was filing motions. Deadlines were passing. The case was moving forward. Foreclosure rarely explodes all at once. It progresses in stages. And when you don't respond in those first 20 days, you're not stopping the process. You're just stepping out of it. And that's the real consequence. It's not the fear. It's loss of positioning. So now let's talk about the other side. When someone does respond within those 20 days, the tone of the case changes. In New York, filing an answer triggers the settlement conference process. That means that the court schedules a conference between you, the bank, the lender. They have to appear. You have to appear. And the purpose, it's not to argue, it's to explore resolution. Now the case has structure. There are scheduled dates, there's oversight, there's accountability on both sides. It's no longer just letters and collection calls. Now it becomes supervised. And supervision creates the space that you need. Space to submit financial documents properly, space to pursue a loan modification, if that's even realistic, space to evaluate whether repayment is possible, space to consider selling your home before judgment becomes a factor, space to make decisions with clarity instead of panic. And that space does not exist if you disappear at the beginning. So please Remember that. You're not fixing foreclosure in 20 days here. You're only securing your place in the process. That's it. And that one decision to respond will determine if the next few months feel chaotic or controlled. Now, here's something people don't say out loud. Many homeowners avoid responding because they feel ashamed. They think that filing something in court means that they failed, but it doesn't. It means you're protecting yourself. The court doesn't judge you emotionally. It looks at whether you respond, and that's it. And responding keeps your leverage intact. When you don't respond, the lender's path becomes smoother. When you do respond, the process becomes structured. And believe me, structure is always better than reactive. Foreclosure in New York is procedural, it's not personal. It moves step by step, and the first step is participation. If you're sitting at your kitchen table right now looking at those papers, don't try to solve everything at once. It's impossible. You don't need the full strategy today. You don't need every answer. You need to make sure that you don't give up your say in what happens next. Respond, stay in it, because once you've done that, you've preserved your position. And once your position is secure, then the real conversation begins. What actually happens after you file the answer in New York? Because the next phase is where strategy, timelines, and real decisions starts to take shape. And that's what I'm talking about in the next video.